OpenAI are releasing GPT 5.1 Codex Max, which can work autonomously for more than a day over millions of tokens. Very cool. Good morning. I'm going to be running through the artificial intelligence news of the day. We have a couple of stories in the aftermath of the Gemini 3 launch. Probably the biggest one is something I did not realize yesterday. Gemini was built using TPUs, not GPUs. So Nvidia, going to be looking at the implications of that. We also have Nvidia's earning call, and it looks pretty good. And they are setting up some more deals, showing again that potentially this is not a bubble yet, or it's just a bubble that is growing even more. I'm also going to be looking at a spat which has been going on for a while between Gary Marcus and Yann LeCun, which has come to a head with a Substack article from Gary Marcus. I think it's quite personal and quite unpleasant, but I'm going to cover it, give you the link in the newsletter so you can read through it yourself. It's a debate that's been going on for a while, and it's suddenly become a little unpleasant. But these are two kind of giants in the world of artificial intelligence, so it's interesting to see what they are debating about and to at least know what this argument is about. Good morning, everybody. Okay. Let's rock and roll. So the first thing, Gemini 3 came out a couple of days ago, and by all benchmarks, by all usage reports, it's good. It's pretty good. It is state of the art, or SOTA as we call it in this world. Whether this is enough to move people away from ChatGPT, whether or not it's enough to bring the general public over from what they're using every single day, basically ChatGPT, over to Google is yet to be seen. There's a huge switching cost, especially when you're moving from one AI application to another, because they have a persistent memory. So if you've been using ChatGPT for a while, ChatGPT knows a lot about you and is going to get you better answers based on what it already knows. So shifting over to Gemini, even if Gemini is as good or even slightly better, is still a switching cost. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to capture the public market. That said, ChatGPT's lead has been decreasing over the last year. Some people see that as the demise of OpenAI and ChatGPT, but we have to remember that they started a couple of years ago with basically 100% dominance. There is nowhere to go but down for them. Unless they hold that 100%, that complete monopoly, which is unlikely, there's no other way for them to go. So we're seeing it drifting slowly down, with mainly Google taking their market share. The big thing that I wanted to cover today, which I actually missed entirely, and I think a lot of other people might have missed this, the Gemini models were not trained on Nvidia GPUs. So Nvidia are now the largest company on earth. Their market capitalization is now $5 trillion. It passed $4 trillion a couple of months ago, and it was the first company to do that. Everyone was like, what's going on? And then it passed 5. I think, let me check that. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Okay, it's 4.5 trillion. Did it hit 5? I might be making it up. Oh no, it did. It hit 5 trillion valuation back a month ago. It hit 5 trillion, and now it's 4.5 trillion. The numbers are so huge that the odd half a trillion here or there is now no longer memorable. Anyway, they are doing their earnings report today, or they're releasing the information now. We'll talk about that in a moment, but the big thing I want to talk about is Gemini 3, which is now the state-of-the-art model, the best model we have out there right now, give or take. I think that's a fair enough statement, is not trained on Nvidia. It is trained on Google's own TPUs, or tensor processing units. So a GPU is something that Nvidia build, and they have the H200s, the H100s, or the ones that you might have in your home PC, things like the 4080 and the 4090. That's not what's being used. So Nvidia has become the largest company on earth because everybody needs their GPUs right now and is signing these multi-billion-dollar deals with Nvidia because they're the only game in town. Google have circumvented that. Google have built Gemini 3 Pro on their TPUs. They did not use Nvidia's chipsets. That's huge. We have a little statement here, which is Gemini 3 Pro was trained using Google's tensor processing units. TPUs are specifically designed to handle the massive computations involved in training large language models and can speed up training considerably compared to CPUs. TPUs often come with large amounts of high bandwidth memory, allowing for the handling of large models and batch sizes during training, which can lead to better model quality. TPU pods, which is basically a large cluster, sticking them all together in a rack, also provide a scalable solution for handling the growing complexity of large foundation models. Training can be distributed across multiple TPU devices for faster and efficient processing. So Google have for the last few years have been building their own chipsets, which are specifically made for machine learning. They're specifically made for artificial intelligence, whereas GPUs were initially for video games. Anyone who plays video games and has been a PC gamer for any amount of time knows that you have to have a GPU, a graphics card, to run video games. During the crypto craze, people were using GPUs to mine Bitcoin and other currencies, and now GPUs are being used in artificial intelligence, which makes them the hottest product in town. That's why Trump has imposed restrictions on Nvidia's sales to mainland China. Nvidia had to create their own stripped down versions that could be sold to the Chinese market. Even those were hit with tariffs. Google's just said, we are not going to be restricted by the supply from Nvidia. We are not going to be hit by whatever price you decide to charge. We're going to build our own. And they've done so. And more than that, they have trained a state-of-the-art model using those chips. This, more than anything else, makes them the main contender. They control the moat. Google have built a chipset, or a series of chipsets, which will allow them to train their own models without dependence on Nvidia's GPUs. While everyone else, including OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, are basically begging, scraping and pleading Jensen Huang, the head of Nvidia, for more chipsets. Please keep building, build faster. And as you see these circular investment diagrams with ChatGPT saying to Oracle, we're going to spend this number of billions, and then Oracle go to Nvidia and say, we need to order this many $1 billion worth of GPUs. And then Nvidia invests into OpenAI because it knows that they're going to be using the GPUs. You get this whole circular economy. Instead, Google is saying, no, we're going to bring that all in-house and we're going to own the vertical. We're going to own the supply of these processors. And they'll probably start building power stations so that they can own the supply of electricity. We're going to own the model, and we're going to own the application layer by deploying this into our search engines, which they've just done with Gemini 3. We're going to deploy it into Google Workspace. We're going to deploy it into your software and bring it to you, into your Android devices. Google, because of this layer, owning the TPUs, training their own models on their own hardware, on their own TPUs, is something I missed yesterday. And this changes the game entirely. And this is something that I think a lot of people have missed. This is huge, really huge. Getting a GPU in the first place would be nice. GPUs are really hard to get. I want to build a gaming PC. I haven't had a gaming PC for 10 years now, and I'd love to build one again. Buying a 4090 is, how much is a 4090 now? Nvidia GeForce 4090 is £2,200, and that's on pre-order, so it's out of stock. And the other ones are £2,600 out of stock, $2,200 out of stock. They are incredibly expensive. And remember that when you were building a data center, you're not buying 4090s, but you are buying masses of these graphics cards, these GPUs, and they cost a huge amount of money. And this is why Nvidia is worth so much money, because they are pretty much the only game in town for building these. There are other companies, but it's really theirs to lose. They're almost a monopoly. Trying to get a GPU right now is impossible. It has been for years because of crypto as well. Fantastic analysis. Google, rather than getting weaker, is back in pole position. Yeah, I think I'm really bullish on Google now, because owning the whole vertical slice and not relying on companies like Nvidia puts them in a great position. I'm hopeful. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I really like ChatGPT, I want them to win, or I love Grok, I want Grok to win. They become quite tribal and partisan behind a particular model or a particular company. For me, it's probably Anthropic and Claude. I really like it. What I like more, though, than any particular company or model is the competition. And the fact that we have a new state-of-the-art model every month. So people right now are like, Gemini's the best. I've cancelled my ChatGPT subscription. I'm never using it again. In a month or so, ChatGPT will release a new model and everyone will be like, oh, Gemini is dead, and run back to ChatGPT. And there's all this tribalism, which is missing the point that all of these models are getting better all the time. We're going to talk about scaling in a minute, because I'm going to talk about Yann, LeCun and Gary Marcus, who are having a very public spat. I wouldn't be that surprised if it ends in somebody suing somebody, but we'll get to that in a moment. On the TPUs, this is a bit more detailed. I'll put this in the newsletter, but there's a guy called Rohan Paul. He's on Twitter, but he catalogs AI news, but he goes into detail about the TPUs, what they're using. They're scaling 3 TPU chip families: Ironwood, Sunfish and Zebrafish. They've got even larger pods deploying next year and into 2027. I'll put this in the newsletter because it's interesting, but it's a bit too detailed. One question is, people are always asking, what's a tensor processing unit? These things aren't available to buy. You can't walk into a Best Buy. Does Best Buy still exist? Or a Currys in the UK and buy a TPU. This is just Google building for themselves. They have no interest in releasing these to the market. They build them and use them to train models. So that's why we don't hear about them compared to GPUs, which we can purchase consumer level versions of it. Technically, you could purchase a H200. How much does an H200 cost though? An 8 times H200 is 300,000. This was a year ago, so it's probably more than that now. Let's have a look. So this is an Nvidia DGX H200. It's £345,000, excluding VAT. With VAT, it's bringing you up to £432,000. So the price of a house. Or you could buy one server rack block. Remember, these companies are filling warehouses with these things. And this one by itself is nearly £500,000. So you can buy them, but it's not very practical. Whereas with TPUs, Google are just holding them. They're like, nope, these are for us. These are for us to deploy, develop, and build our own models. That's why we have Gemini 3. Speaking of Gemini 3, somebody did some vibe maths. I love how vibe has permeated everywhere. Vibe coding has entered the dictionary, and it became the Collins Dictionary Word of the Year, which I thought was fun. Lisan Al-Gaib from June predicted the parameter size of the Gemini 3 model is, and this is very much, he's calling it vibe maths, it's back of the envelope mathematics. But the number they've come to is about 7.5 trillion parameters. The lower bound is 1.7 trillion, and the upper bound is 12 trillion. I've talked about parameters before. It's a rough way to gauge how big the model is and how good the model is. Generally, the more parameters you have in the model, the more transformer layers, the bigger the model itself, the better the model will perform. Up until now, with large language models, a scaling law has applied where if you throw more information into it and your model size is larger, it will perform better. We don't really know why. We don't really know all the mathematics, but up until now, it's just been like, okay, just make them bigger, make them bigger. There is a fear, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about Gary Marcus and Lan shortly. There's a fear that we are going to hit a wall. So we'll scale, and then it will drop out, and large language models won't take us any further. We haven't hit that yet. So up until now, basically making them larger, adding more parameters into the model makes the models better. And this is supposedly a 7.5 trillion parameter model, which is absolutely gigantic. So I'll add this in so you can look at the analysis yourself. I thought it was quite interesting. Better than 6.7, yes. Vibe coding has entered the dictionary, and vibe coding is now a dictionary word of the year. I think it was Collins Dictionary. I think 6.7 was up for contention. Interestingly, so was the word clanker, vibe coding. The Collins word of the year 2025 is vibe coding. Vibe coding, an emergent software development that turns natural language into computer code using AI, has been named Collins Word of the Year. The term was popularized by Andrej Karpathy. I thought he coined it, but okay. Former director of AI at Tesla and founding engineer at OpenAI, to describe how AI enables creative output while he could forget that code even exists. So that is the word of the year, and it beat aura farming, biohacking, oligarchy, an anti-AI word, interestingly, coolcation, glaze, Henry micro-retirement, task masking. A 6.7 was not up for contention this time. I need to be careful saying that, just in case my chat gets raided. Cool, let's hop along to Nvidia. So I've been talking about the fact that Gemini 3 was not trained using Nvidia chips, which is a huge deal. Pretty much the only state-of-the-art model that has been trained using something else. Everything else has been trained on Nvidia. We have this very interesting photo the other day from Greg Brockman, who is the president. Yes, president, have to get this right. It's a picture of Greg Brockman, his wife. The guy on the left is the head of AI at the White House. I should know his name. David Sachs, that's him. David Sachs. He is the White House AI and crypto czar. You might notice Greg Brockman is standing next to Elon Musk. Most people are commenting on Musk's wild shoes. But if we go to the right of Elon Musk, we have Jensen Huang, the head of Nvidia. This is a very interesting photo because we have OpenAI, Elon Musk, XAI, and Jensen Huang all posing together. Oh, and the head of the White House's AI and crypto czar. Most people are talking about the shoes, but what this really shows is Jensen Huang and his power right now. Jensen Huang runs Nvidia, and they are doing their earnings. Let's see if they're out. I don't think they're out yet. So Nvidia, I'm not sure if the earnings are out yet, but Nvidia shares set for $300 billion swing around a high stakes earnings. Here we go. It's going to be 5 p.m. No, they're out. I'm sorry, they are out. Global tech stocks rally after Nvidia earnings bolsters AI bulls. I should have read the headline. Nvidia reported strong earnings. Nvidia again are the kind of number one game in town in terms of making GPUs. GPUs are pretty much the only way to train your large language models, except for, as we just saw, Gemini 3 trained on TPUs. So that is a chink in the armor for Nvidia. I think that news is not yet widely realized how important that is. Nvidia is still basically the underlying infrastructure company for all of artificial intelligence. Global technology stocks advanced today, Thursday, after Nvidia reported better than expected chip sales, reassuring investors on artificial intelligence demand amid growing concerns of a bubble. The thought was if the chip sales had started to soften, it shows that there's less appetite for building these models because maybe OpenAI, etc., are realizing, we need to cut spending because we need to actually make some money. Everyone is just throwing more money into chips. The US stock futures pointed to a rally when Wall Street opened later today. Contracts tracking the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 were up 1.4%. So these are futures betting on what's going to happen when it opens up, while those of the S&P 500 gained 1%. Nvidia's share price was up 4.7% in pre-market trading. So again, when the markets open later, there'll be an expectation that it's going to be bumped. It's going to be a very busy market today. I'm not giving any financial advice, nor should you listen to me if I do own some Nvidia stock, as I'm sure lots of you do. Nvidia's results seen as a test of investor sentiment in the AI sector because its chips power large language models such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, but not Google Gemini 3, steadied the tech sector after a sell-off in recent weeks that came as investors grew wary of valuations and huge capital expenditure on chips and data centers. Yeah, so it's a very valid concern. There is a lot of money being pumped into AI right now with no real returns in sight and certainly no profits. So with startups, with tech companies, that is not abnormal. Often companies will go for years. Amazon, for example, spent 10 years not making a profit. That's normal. However, because such a large proportion of investment is going into artificial intelligence, it's putting a lot of money on one racehorse. If the revenues and the profits do not start to show in the next couple of years, then the investor sentiment is going to sour. We could see a downturn, we could see a collapse. And because so much cash has been thrown at these companies, that could be catastrophic. We're talking like 2007 levels of catastrophic or dot-com crash levels, which will be unpleasant. And we have to remember that there are good investments and there are bad investments. There's money being sent into companies that might actually win. If somebody reaches AGI, it's going to be a good financial bet. Or if you're putting money into something like Nvidia, who are actually selling something, they are making huge amounts of profits because they are selling to the AI companies. That's potentially a safer bet. But there are also going to be bad investments in the sector because AI is huge. There's going to be a lot of vaporware. There's going to be a lot of people who are raising money based on hopes and dreams. Mira Murati recently, her thinking lab, they've got a valuation of, I think, 50 billion. They haven't really released anything. They don't have any plans. There's no business there. But they're worth huge amounts of money based on promises. So we need to be really careful because so much of the Western economy is now seated on this one sector. Unless it shows some kind of returns, it's going to be extremely messy. I can say this even as somebody who is pro-AI, because we have to differentiate the technology, which is being used and it's very valuable on a daily basis, from the investment. You can have a financial investment bubble without it necessarily being a technological bubble. The internet is probably the best example of this. In the late 1990s into the early 2000s, a huge amount of dumb money was spent on internet stocks, which didn't make any sense. Pets.com is the ultimate example of a company that just bought a domain name, didn't really have a functioning business, and then just hemorrhaged money. But because it was a .com, because it was internet first, people just threw money at it. And then they lost their shirts because it was not a good business. That could happen again. That will very likely happen again. You need it to be a solid fundamental business first, and then it just adds to that. AI itself is not sufficient. It needs to be a good business. But out the back of the dot-com boom and the dot-com crash, yeah, all these companies got absolutely demolished. Fortunes were lost, houses were lost, people were sent into poverty. We had a recession. It was horrendous. But we had the internet. The technology itself was not affected. The technology kept going. The technology is now one of the most important we've ever invented. Life before the internet was very different. Not necessarily better, but very different to how it is now. I think we're in a similar situation here where artificial intelligence will be fine. It's a very valuable tool that is now being used by a massive percentage of humanity, not because of the hype, but because it's useful day to day. That doesn't mean financial investments are safe, and it doesn't mean we can't have a crash and a recession off the back of this. It just means we'll have a crash or a recession correction, and then we'll continue to use artificial intelligence. There will be a few winners, probably Google, who will come out of this relatively unscathed and dominate, but we will probably have a correction. The leather jacket, the no leather jacket. Was he not wearing the jacket? He's not wearing the jacket. So Loco in chat has just pointed out Jensen Huang is not wearing the jacket. Jensen Huang has a very nice leather jacket that he's always wearing, and he's never not in his leather jacket. So the fact that he is at the White House and he's dressed up properly, lost it, there he is. Yeah, he's in black tie. He's not wearing a bow tie, interestingly. But yeah, he's not wearing a jacket. Maybe it's in the cloakroom. We also had some announcement. This was yesterday. So this was the same day. And this is probably why they're buddies in this photo. So in this photo, you can see Jensen Huang and Elon Musk, good friends, and Greg Brockman of OpenAI. This was on the 19th. Same day, Musk and Nvidia, so Jensen Huang, have announced a 500 megawatt data center being built in Saudi Arabia. This information came out the same day as the earnings report from Nvidia. That's not coincidental. This will be a huge project. Let's see how much money is going into this. Oh, I can't because it's paywalled. 500 megawatt though, that will be a huge investment. Okay, so Saudi Arabia will put money into probably, here we go, how are they doing it? And the money will be moving in special ways. Elon Musk said his XAI artificial intelligence startup plans to develop a 500 megawatt data center in Saudi with the kingdom's state-backed AI venture Humane that will rely on chips from Nvidia Corp. So I imagine the Saudi Arabia investment fund will be putting some money in, Elon Musk will be putting some money in, Nvidia will be building it. Nvidia may, as they keep doing, it might even take a stake or buy a portion of XAI. This is what they've been doing with OpenAI, is investing their money back into the AI companies. So I'm sure all of this money will be moving in a tight little circle between these parties. But this came out the same day as the earnings report for Nvidia. So this will help pop the confidence as well, because that's a huge project at 500 megawatts. Okay. Drive says, I listened in on the Nvidia conference call live. I don't see a crash coming from AI. No, Nvidia are actually making money. They're making huge amounts of money. Of course, that could dry up if their customers go bankrupt. But right now, they are the ones who are actually making cash, emerging money on buying GPUs from Nvidia and electricity bills, training bills, etc. Yes, the party could stop, the music could stop, but at the moment, Nvidia is making a lot of money, which is why they are worth $4.5 trillion market capitalization. As a bet, again, not financial advice, they're actually making bank at the moment. That could stop in the future if their customers collapse, but for now, they're doing extremely well. Good morning, Lyra, or good afternoon, Ethan. Coming back to Greg Brockman, so he's the president of XAI. I'm sorry, Greg. OpenAI. It's that photo of you with Musk. Don't leave, stay with OpenAI. Sorry, Greg. So yesterday, ChatGPT, there's a new model. And they released it just after Gemini 3. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is them on the counterattack, and they're coming up against Gemini, they're going to fight back. Apparently this was planned. They were already going to be releasing this, and they tend to release on Thursdays generally, so I think this was just in their rotation. It is Codex Max. So today, OpenAI are releasing GPT 5.1 Codex Max, which can work autonomously for more than a day over millions of tokens. Very cool. So it's an agent model, which will go off and do your work for you. I have agents, while I'm doing this stream, I have some agents off doing work for me, and it's a wonderful feeling knowing that I can hop off the stream and they would have all done the tasks for me. Very cool. And this can work for more than a day, which is great if it's doing the right thing. Otherwise, it's a disaster and you come back and you've got a bill of a couple of $100 and it's wasted millions of tokens. Noam Brown is researching reasoning at OpenAI. Pre-training hasn't hit a wall and neither has test time compute. So this is what the Gemini 3 team was saying. A few days ago, they were saying we had no problems with pre-training. We can still throw as much as we want at these models and they get better and better. So if we are going to reach a plateau with large language models, we will see pre-training and post-training start to decrease in efficiency. So we will see graph of efficiency start to plateau off. Apparently, we're not seeing that yet. Doesn't mean we won't, but as of right now, that is not the case. That said, the fact that everybody is saying we're not hitting a wall is telling, because if we had no fears about hitting a wall, we wouldn't have to say it. This new model is out. It's in Codex. It gets to the same quality of solution faster and raises the ceiling for how complex a task is achievable. Apparently it's very good. I have not tested it yet. I've only just learned about this. Codex as a whole is very good. I have not found Codex to be better than Claude Code personally, so I've stuck with Claude Code. Gemini 3 is also has the ability to code for us. It is apparently not better than Sonnet 4.5. It's good at front-end design, but it's not necessarily better at dealing with complex code and the kind of back end. Codex 5.1, GPT 5.1 Codex Max may be better than Sonnet 4.5, but we need to test it. So we'll get some reactions over the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthropic are cooking up something as well. So probably Opus 4.5. Predict we get that before the end of the year, which may blow everything out of the water because Claude has really focused on coding and they're very good at it. This should just be GPT 5.2. So I think this is specifically for coding. They're in this problem again where, remember when they released GPT-5, that disastrous release? With GPT-5, they were like, we're going to simplify this and we're going to have one model basically, and then we're going to route you to the model you should be using under the hood and you don't need to worry about it. Did not work. The power users, what the hell? Give me back control. The people who wanted 4.0 were like, I hate this. I just want 4.0. Let me select 4.0. So they went from two models. They had GPT-5 and GPT-5 Thinking, I think it was called. I forget exactly. They've now gone to GPT-5 Auto Instant Thinking, GPT-4.0, GPT 4.1, 03, 04 Mini, and these are just in the GUI. And then they have even more. They have the Codex models and even more, like 4.2 as well, in the API. So it's proliferated once again, unfortunately. We at Cursor haven't seen the limit. Do you work at Cursor? I do love Cursor. Haven't seen the limit to compute intelligence ourselves yet. Codex 5. Oh, hi, Mike. Morning, Mike. Oh, sorry, afternoon. 5.1 is still the best for developing using Cursor Pro. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm running Claude Code in a terminal inside of Cursor. For people who are in chat and have no idea what we're talking about. Basically, with vibe coding and AI augmented coding, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. There's a whole bunch of different tools, and it depends on your level of familiarity with code. I'm not a coder. I'm not a software developer. The one that I recommend people start with is something called Lovable. When you go there, it just looks like ChatGPT, but unlike ChatGPT, it will build software for you and it will allow you to deploy that software. Lovable is very simple. I was at the Lovable offices a couple of months ago as part of their Lovable Shipped competition, and I met some of the people who had won the competition. One of the ladies, she runs an English school, helping kids learning English, and she wanted to vibe code something. She wanted to build something herself after spending tens of thousands on developers who didn't deliver. Somebody said, oh, you should try out vibe coding. She booted up Cursor for the first time. And she was like, oh, I can't use this, and panicked and moved away because Cursor looks like a development environment. It looks like what you'd expect for coding, for writing code. Yes, it has a chat panel in the side, but the interfacing is very user unfriendly if you've never coded it before. So she used Lovable instead, which is literally a chat window, and you have a chat with it back and forward and it previews for you. So I highly recommend Lovable to get started if you've never touched code before in your life, because it gives you more abstraction away from the code. You don't need to see the code. You can, but you don't need to. The next step up from that is looking at Cursor. Cursor is initially incredibly intimidating if you've never coded, but watch a few videos, read a guide or two, and you'll quickly realize, oh, it's Lovable. It just looks less friendly and it gives me more power. From there, you can look at things like Claude Code, which is you've probably heard of, even if you don't vibe code, is the powerhouse right now. There are alternatives like Codex as well, which comes from ChatGPT. But by that kind of point, you can mess around with the different models, you can try things out, see what works for you, because a lot of it is relatively subjective. We get these benchmarks, a software engineering bench, for example, which says, oh, this is the best at software engineering, this is the best at building. But then it gets into the hands of actual people, and you see this on Twitter, and people are like, no, it's rubbish. So even if it does well in the benchmarks, Grok in particular did really well in the benchmarks, and then people started to use it, and they're like, what happened here? This isn't very good. But that comes later. So if you are interested in vibe coding, check out something like Lovable, Bolt, Replit, or Base 44. They're all good. They're all pretty similar. I personally recommend Lovable, but try them out. And then you can move on to Cursor and look at Claude code, etc. But simple. I tried Gemini 3 with Cursor for coding and it was not as good as 5. Yeah, I was playing around with it yesterday inside of Cursor and I wasn't particularly impressed. It's weird though, because once you use a model, once you get used to it, I've been using Claude code for so long that it feels very familiar with me. So moving over to something else, unless it immediately like one-shots a problem that I've been stuck on, or it just blows my socks off in some way, making a transition to a new model or to a new tool is quite difficult. And yeah, I had a similar thing where I tried it and it was perfectly fine, but I didn't see any particular reason to move from Claude code over to Gemini 3. That said, so Anthropic have given me a Claude Max 20x, whatever it is. They've given me their top for free. They've given me a package, so I have unlimited Claude code. So I don't need to think about what I'm using that much. Whereas if I was thinking, okay, this is going to cost me £2 to run this query, then suddenly that changes the calculus an awful lot. Mike, we have Cursor 2.1 coming in the next 24 to 48 hours. Keep an eye out. Dan, do you work for Cursor? Cursor is such a cool company. Well done on the raise recently as well. I do. Just dropped you an X follow if you'd like to confirm. No, I believe you, man. It'd be a very weird thing to make up for Cursor in particular. Cursor's wonderful. I use it every day. Do you use Cursor yet? Please let me know why you're using Claude Code versus Cursor. I use Claude Code inside of Cursor, so I open up terminals. We built for the programmer primarily, not for the beginner, unfortunately. And you're sitting in a very interesting place in the market. When I visited Lovable and I was talking to some of their guys and their marketing, I was asking them, what do you think about Cursor? And they're like, fantastic tool. We use it ourselves, but we don't consider them a competitor because it's just a different part of the market entirely. I'll drop you a bunch of free Cursor credits if you want. I'll never say no to free credits. You know how to get to my heart. We're still working on the Gemini 3 harnessing Cursor. It's quite new versus how we built around the other models. Really? Oh, okay. Is it very different to Gemini 2.5? That's fascinating. Any word about Manus AI? Is it worth buying credits? I haven't used Manus for a while, honestly. Manus was really good because it is one of the first kind of consumer products that had agents in it. So you could set it off and it could do research tasks and it could manipulate your browser. That modality has come to many of the other models now. So ChatGPT has an agent mode. ChatGPT has Atlas, which has an agent mode as well. Because agentic modes have been added to most of the other models, that's made Manus' unique selling point less useful. So I haven't used it for a while for that reason. It's a bit like Perplexity when it first came out. Their big thing was, oh, it's going to source all the information, so you worry less about hallucinations. Really cool. Initially, when that came out, I could recommend Perplexity to people because it would give you 20 or 30 sources and say, this is how we know that the information I've researched is true. That was a unique selling point for Perplexity back then. Now, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok even have a deep thinking or a research mode that means it's going to be a bit more careful. It's going to go and find sources and then it's going to reference its sources. So suddenly Perplexity's like uniqueness was kicked out. I find that's similar with Manus. That said, I haven't used it for a while, so I need to go and check it out. What business evolution do you see yourself doing based on some of the things you noticed recently? Me or the Cursor guy? I think everyone's talking to the Cursor guy now. You don't need me. Perplexity Pro is almost no longer relevant. I barely use it now personally. Yeah, Mike, I agree. I have it. So I think everybody has a free Perplexity Pro account because they went on that drive of giving away as many Pro accounts as possible, presumably to plump their paying customer figures. If you have a PayPal account, you can get Perplexity Pro for free. So anybody out there, if you Google PayPal Perplexity Pro, you can sign up and get it for free. I just haven't seen reason to use it personally. I think it's a cool product. I just don't see where it fits anymore. Darren, we're working on it. Dan. What business evolution do you see yourself doing based on some of the things you noticed recently? For me, I'm always putting out new products. Something that I'm really interested in is I have a few courses out there. If you go to my website, aiwithkyle.com, I've got 120 playbooks guiding people through step by step, like how to deploy AI for marketing or social media accounts, or how to put together a business plan. So it's AI entrepreneurship, using AI to help start and grow businesses. It's all written content. I wrote over 400,000 words in a year. What I found increasingly is that people don't really want to read or study that much anymore. When I sell courses to people and it's, oh, here's 12 hours of content for you, that is no longer a bonus. That's not extremely valuable. What people do, and I'm sure you guys have done it, is you sign up for a course with the best intentions and then you just don't do it. You're like, oh, cool, signed up, great, I'll get to that later. Never happens. So what I'm really interested in is education using AI tools. So basically still writing a course, still creating videos, but then building an AI that can help people work their way through it. I've just released something called the Freedom OS, which is a prototype of this. I walk people through a process. It starts with a little video, so there's 7 modules. Each module has a little video of 2 or 3 minutes, some text, given some framing, and then a tool. So an AI assessment, quiz, worksheet, or self-assessment. Over these modules, it gathers all that information and creates an action plan for you at the end. I'm really interested in using AI like that embedded into education, because I think a lot of education is very old-fashioned. So that's what I've been doing recently, experimenting with that and seeing if I can get people through educational material better by using artificial intelligence. I think that's super exciting for me personally. So that's what I'll be doing a lot more of. I'm going to go back and convert all of my other material so that it has companion AIs, coaching AIs, teaching AIs to help you work through, which is a bit more complex than just dumping it in a chatbot. Because the problem with just having a chatbot that has that information is it doesn't necessarily know how to guide people. People don't know what to ask. You still need to guide people through an educational process. They don't necessarily have the right questions until you get them moving in that direction. Education will be transformed. Salman Khan has got a book called Brave New Words, and he was one of the first people to try out GPT-4. They asked him into the office basically to say, hey, what do you think of this? I think he had a moment of, oh my God, this is going to destroy teaching. It's going to destroy schools. But then going through that to the, no, wait, hang on. We can give every kid on earth a one-to-one tutor, which is so cool. A lot of the problem with education right now is that we have 30 kids in a room, and how is a teacher meant to accommodate for all of those different kids' needs, make sure they're all up to date? Take something like mathematics. If you miss out a basic element, everything else is built on top of that. If you're missing this one little element, I don't know, ratios or whatever, then suddenly the bits above it are complete mystery, and you start tuning out in the lessons because you're like, I don't get it. And then that means you've got more missing gaps. If we have one-on-one tutors driven by AI to supplement the teaching, to supplement the work of a teacher, it's such an exciting possibility. I'm focusing not on kids, but on people who want to start businesses. I think the use of AI is global and universal. I'm going to hop over to this. I'm almost at an hour. So what I'm going to do, which is probably the right thing to do, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to take sides, but I want to flag it up because I thought this is a really interesting conflict. There's a guy called Gary Marcus, who you might know. He's on Twitter. I really like him. I use him as my kind of skeptic. I have people that I follow who are talking about the future and all the exciting things we can do with artificial intelligence, and we're going to hit AGI and we're going to change the world and singularity is here. There's those people. Lots of it's hype, lots of it is positive optimism, which actually drives us forward. Then you have Gary Marcus. He's a researcher, but he's very skeptical. And he's skeptical in particular about large language models. Basically says LLMs will not take us to AGI. Absolutely not. And he wants to push it in the direction of more kind of hybrid artificial intelligence, bringing back in symbolic logic. AI has been around for a while, like since the 1950s, since the birth of computers. The idea of AI has been around. Back then, one of the main approaches was to put the implicit rules of the world into an explicit computer system. So to write everything down into this computer system. And there was a particular project, was it Psych? Yes, it's Psych. I don't know how I remember that. So Psych was a huge project to try and codify all of human knowledge. Cyc is a machine reasoning AI that uses codified human common sense and knowledge, not patterns and statistics, for human-like cognitive process. So this is the idea of like symbolic AI and capturing human knowledge and embedding it into artificial intelligences. This particular project, Cyc, they realized quite quickly that the world's quite complicated, like really complicated. So I've got this glass I'm drinking water out of. It's a pint glass. You would have to codify in the fact that this is a pint glass and it's normally used for beer, but you can have water in it. Could you drink milk from it? You could. Should you put wine in it? Again, you could have wine in a pint glass, but that's an awful lot of wine. Maybe you should decrease your wine consumption. You'd have to explicitly put all of these kind of rules and thoughts into it, stuff that comes very naturally to humans because we can make these connections. But when you have to sit down and type them out, it gets really complicated really fast. This is a form of artificial intelligence that kind of died out, and it caused one of the AI winters because people realized like, oh god, this is too complex, we can't get this all into computers. At the time, computers were also not very good compared to what we have now, and at the same time there was a shift into things like neural networks and self-learning machines, going into machine learning, deep learning, etc. So it shifted in that direction, and that's where we are right now with large language models, which are built on machine learning, basically throwing a huge amount of information at a model, having an algorithm sort it out, then doing post-training and creating what we have today. So it moved away from symbolic and instead to give it a lot of information, let the machine work it out itself, let it work out the connections. Don't try to explicitly put the connections in. Gary Marcus, I'm simplifying massively, he says that we need a hybrid approach. So we need connectionism, machines that learn themselves, and we need symbolism, given explicit rules. And that's going to be how we get to AGI. There's another guy called Yann LeCun who recently left Meta. So Yann has been at Meta for a while, I want to say a decade plus. He's still the chief scientist of Meta AI. He is launching his own startup called Advanced Machine Intelligence. Meta will remain a partner in the new company. These guys have been squabbling about the future of AI quite publicly. They're both, I wouldn't say godfathers of AI, although Yann LeCun is considered one of them because of his work on the convolutional neural networks, but they've been bickering publicly. Now, Gary Marcus has put out this piece called The False Glorification of Yann LeCun. With the support of Meta and the unwitting assistance of the press, Yann LeCun has for the last decade run one of the most successful PR campaigns in recent scientific history, persistently allowing himself to be painted as the inventor of ideas, techniques and arguments to which he is not the inventor. Of that PR campaign came Friday with a puff piece in the Wall Street Journal tied to a new startup LeCun is launching, with a grossly misleading headline that styled LeCun as a lone genius. It just goes on this, accusing him of plagiarism. LeCun is nowadays known in the general public for 5 ideas: convolutional neural networks, CNNs, his critique of large language models, his critique of the scaling hypothesis, advocacy of common sense and physical reasoning, and the advocacy of world models. The thing is, A, he originated none of these ideas, and B, he rarely, if ever, credits any of the people who actually did. This reflects a consistent pattern known as the plagiarism of ideas. So this is some academics absolutely going at it. This is the first salvo. No, they've been bickering for years. This is not necessarily crossing a line, but very much drawing a line in the sand and saying you have plagiarized ideas. I will put this in the newsletter. The newsletter will come out tomorrow. There's a lot here. A lot of the things. This undercuts the argument a little bit. A lot of those 5 discoveries or ideas that LeCun is known for, Gary actually says, actually, it was me. That was all me. I think 2 out of the 5, he's basically saying that was me. So the Wall Street Journey article was part of LeCun's critiques of LLMs, and his critique has been noted in the press numerous times. I was likely the first with a series of challenges to GPT-2 and GPT-3 on Twitter in the fall of 2019, and a series of articles in 2019 and 2020. And then there's another one later, critique of pure scaling. So can we just keep throwing more data at these models and they will keep getting better, or will we hit a wall? They've both criticized it, where Gary Marcus has said, LLMs are not going to take us to AGI. No way. We need something more hybrid. Whereas LeCun has said we can scale through throwing more data, but we need our models to be instantiated in the real world. We need world models. We need spatial intelligence, which Feifei Li was talking about recently, in order to move us to that next level. So purely doing what we're doing now with the LLMs, we will hit a wall. So we need to expand the data and the dimensions in which that data can be accessed. Gary is saying, LeCun wasn't here first. Instead, I was probably the first person to doubt this publicly back in 2022. It's not something that I want to get into that much, because I think lawsuits are going to start flying around from this, because this is very inflammatory. But it is fascinating. It dips into the fractures within artificial intelligence about where this is going. It also has roots in the past with symbolic AI versus connectionist AI, and then talking also about spatial intelligence and world models. So it's a very public falling out and quite aggressive, but I think quite interesting because of the connections to the general overall progress of artificial intelligence. This is like Kendrick versus Drake for AGI people, but that's a very funny comment. Anyway, I'm going to finish up the stream. Let me just pop through any things. Actually, I'll finish up on YouTube first. Thank you so much, everybody. Today we covered the fact that Gemini 3 is built using TPUs rather than GPUs, which is a chink in the armor of Nvidia's seemingly unassailable lead in the market right now. We also looked at Nvidia's earning call, doing pretty well, showing that their AI bubble will either continue to inflate or it doesn't exist and there's some real value here. But it's not popping just yet. So congratulations if you own Nvidia stock. It's going to keep going by the looks of it. And then we had a quick look at GPT or ChatGPT's new model. So they released one a day after Gemini 3, not in response, but they're already releasing it. It's for people who are coding, but it's a new coding model, which highlights the fact that Gemini 3 is apparently not very good at coding. So they are still falling behind in that area, which might limit their ability to gain a foothold in the early adopters, which might mean it doesn't trickle down to the general public. Maybe. And then finally, we looked at the spat between Gary Marcus and Yann LeCun, which has now become a frontal assault. I will put the Substack article in the newsletter, along with all of the other resources that we've covered. The newsletter comes out every single day at 8 a.m. UK time. Has a written summary of what's been covered, as well as links to the videos. Over on YouTube, you'll find this live cut up into its individual sections, edited, tidied up a little bit, so you can directly go to where you need to go. We also have a podcast, which I keep forgetting to talk about. I checked the analytics the other day, and about 1,000 people are listening to it. I wouldn't listen to myself on a podcast, but I'm not the intended audience. So there's a podcast, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes. Thank you. Somebody has been badgering me quite correctly in the YouTube comments saying, can you please add to YouTube Music? It should now be in YouTube Music. I hope we've managed to do that for you, and sorry that it's taken so long. Please subscribe to YouTube. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. I think we're at 9,100 something, so we should be there relatively soon. So please subscribe because it really helps us to get to 10,000. I will be back tomorrow morning. I'm going to try to do early. My internal clock shifted entirely. I'm waking up late and working late into the night, probably because it's black outside, unfortunately. But I will try to get here for 10 or 11. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you soon.